Something is quietly happening inside your Windows PC right now, and almost nobody is talking about it the right way. Your computer could be running significantly faster, not after buying new RAM, not after upgrading your SSD, not after spending a single dollar, but because of settings and features that Microsoft has either hidden from you, locked away on purpose, or only just started rolling out in 2026. And the most shocking part? Some of these things have been sitting inside your machine for years, completely invisible, while you blamed your slow PC on old hardware or a virus. So before you spend money on anything, watch this entire video, because what you're about to find out will genuinely change how your computer feels to use every single day. Let's start with the thing that is happening right now in real time that most Windows users have absolutely no idea about. Microsoft just released a feature called Low Latency Profile. That name sounds technical, but what it actually does is incredibly simple to understand once you see it in action. Every time you click the Start menu, open a search bar, right-click on your desktop, or try to launch an application, your CPU, the brain of your computer, has been taking its time waking up. It has been sitting in a low-power state to save energy and then slowly ramping up to handle whatever you asked it to do. That tiny delay, that fraction of a second lag between your click and the response, is something you have felt thousands of times without ever knowing what caused it. It is that moment where you click something and the screen sort of hesitates. That pause where you wonder if your computer even registered what you did. Microsoft internally calls this the click and wait problem, and they have been aware of it for years. Low latency profile is their fix, and it is finally rolling out right now. Here's how it works at a technical level, because understanding this will make you appreciate just how clever the solution actually is. When you trigger a high priority action, opening the Start menu, clicking Search, pulling up the Notification Center, launching an app, Windows now instantly spikes your CPU to its maximum frequency. For a short burst, typically somewhere between 1 and 3 seconds, just long enough to rip open that application or fly out at full speed. Then it immediately drops back down to a normal idle state. So you're not running your CPU at full power all the time, which would burn energy and create heat. Instead, Windows is now smart enough to recognize when you need instant responsiveness and delivers a precise, controlled burst of CPU power exactly when you need it. The result, according to Microsoft's own testing and independent benchmarks from multiple tech publications, is up to 70% faster flyout loading and up to 40% quicker app launches. Those are not small numbers. On a budget or mid-range laptop, that difference is something you can feel immediately. It changes how the operating system feels to use entirely. Now here's the part that is actually wild. This feature was discovered buried inside Windows Update Notes in May 2026. Microsoft called it simply a general performance improvement in their changelog, as if they were trying to sneak it past everyone quietly. But tech researchers who had been tracking something called the Windows K2 project, Microsoft's internal initiative to make Windows 11 genuinely faster all the way through 2027, immediately recognized it. They had been testing an early version of this feature inside the Windows Insider program, and the results were described as staggering. On a deliberately constrained test machine running an Intel Core i5 with only dual-core operation and just 4 gigabytes of RAM, applications snapped open immediately after the feature was enabled. CPU utilization would spike to around 96% the moment an app was triggered. The window appeared on screen instantly, and then the processor returned to idle within 3 seconds. The same machine without the feature felt sluggish and unresponsive by comparison. Same hardware, same software. Completely different experience, just because of this one hidden feature. The mandatory June 2026 Patch Tuesday security update is rolling this out to all Windows 11 users automatically, which means if you have automatic updates enabled, it may already be on your machine. But here's the catch. Microsoft is using what they call a controlled feature rollout strategy, which means even after the update installs, the feature might not activate for you immediately. They are gradually enabling it across millions of devices to monitor for any issues. So your machine could have the update installed and still not be benefiting from low latency profile yet. If you want to check whether it is active on your computer right now, open a free tool called HWENFO-L at TIIT-Run, and then click your Start menu or your Notification Center. If low latency profile is active, you will see a sharp CPU spike to near maximum frequency the moment you click, followed by a clean drop back to idle within a few seconds. If your CPU barely moves when you do those actions, the feature has not been enabled on your device yet. If you want to force it on right now without waiting for Microsoft's gradual rollout, you can do it using a tool called ViveTool. This is not some sketchy third-party hack. It is a legitimate utility built specifically for toggling Windows feature flags, and it is widely used by tech journalists and Windows enthusiasts to test features before they go public. After installing the optional May 2026 update, that is update KB5089573, build number 26200.8524, open Vive tool with administrator privileges, and run the enable command with these feature IDs: 589899092, 60716524, 484333719, and 61392826. Restart your machine, and low latency profile will be active. The improvement is real, measurable, and documented by multiple independent sources. This is not a placebo, but low latency profile is only one piece of the puzzle, because here is something Microsoft has been hiding inside every single copy of Windows 10 and Windows 11 since 2018, something that has nothing to do with the new update, nothing to do with your hardware specs, and everything to do with a power management system that most people never even knew existed. It is called the Ultimate Performance Power Plan, and it has been sitting inside your operating system this entire time, completely invisible, waiting for someone to unlock it. Most people know there are power plans in Windows. You might have seen Balanced, Power Saver, or High Performance somewhere in your settings, but there is a fourth plan above all of those, and Microsoft deliberately hid it from the main settings menu. The reason it exists at all is that it was originally designed for professional workstation computers, the kind of high-end machines used for scientific research, video production, and engineering simulations, where maximum consistency and zero micro-latencies matter more than anything else. Microsoft eventually included it in all editions of Windows 10 and 11, but they kept it hidden because they knew most people on laptops or normal home desktops would not benefit from running it constantly. Here is what makes Ultimate Performance different from even the High Performance plan. Both High Performance and Ultimate Performance keep your CPU running at higher clock speeds to minimize ramp-up delays. But Ultimate Performance goes further. It completely eliminates what are called micro-latencies, those tiny fluctuations caused by the CPU constantly scaling its power up and down to conserve energy under a normal balanced power plan. Windows is continuously making decisions about how much power each component needs, adjusting frequencies dozens of times per second. Under Ultimate Performance, that decision-making process is bypassed. The hardware gets what it needs when it needs it, immediately and without negotiation. The result is that everything feels more snappy and immediate. Applications open faster. Games have more consistent frame rates. Tasks that require bursts of processing power, compressing files, exporting photos, loading complex web pages, all complete more quickly. To unlock this hidden power plan, open your command prompt or Windows terminal as an administrator. You can do this by pressing the Windows key, typing CMD, right-clicking on command prompt, and selecting Run as administrator. Once it is open, paste in this command exactly power CFG, duplicate scheme E9842B022 D5DF448D A003F14749EB61, and press Enter. That is it. Windows will confirm the plan was created. Now open Control Panel, go to Hardware and Sound, then Power Options, and look for a section that says Show Additional Plans. Click that, and you will see Ultimate Performance listed there. Select it, and your PC is now running in a mode most users never even knew existed. One important thing to understand honestly, because this video is not here to mislead you. Ultimate Performance is most beneficial on desktop computers that stay plugged in all the time. If you are on a laptop, there are two realities you need to accept. First, this plan may not appear by default on battery-powered devices, because Microsoft explicitly designed it to stay hidden on laptops due to the significant battery drain it causes. Second, even if you do unlock it on a laptop, running it on battery will noticeably reduce your battery life because your hardware will no longer throttle itself to save power. The performance gain is real, but the trade-off is real too. The ideal way to use it on a laptop is to keep it set to balance normally, and only switch to Ultimate Performance when you're plugged in and doing something demanding, gaming, video editing, large file processing, then switch back when you're done. Now let's talk about a feature that lives inside your graphics settings and has a dramatic impact on gaming performance and visual responsiveness, but sits turned off on most Windows machines because it requires a specific hardware generation to work correctly. It is called Hardware Accelerated GPU Scheduling, and if your graphics card is modern enough, enabling this feature removes a bottleneck that has existed in how Windows handles GPU tasks since the very beginning of PC graphics. Under the traditional system, your CPU handles the scheduling of GPU work. It decides what rendering tasks the GPU should do and in what order, then passes those instructions over to the graphics card. This creates a constant back and forth communication overhead between your CPU and GPU, adding latency to every frame your computer renders. Hardware accelerated GPU scheduling, often shortened to HAGS, moves that scheduling responsibility from the CPU directly onto the GPU itself. The graphics card now manages its own workload queue, cutting out the CPU middleman. The result is reduced latency in games, smoother frame delivery, and in some cases, measurably better frame rates, especially in GPU-limited scenarios where the CPU was creating a bottleneck in the scheduling pipeline. This feature works on NVIDIA graphics cards from the GTX 10 series and newer, and AMD graphics cards from the RX 5000 series and newer. If your card falls into those categories, enabling it is straightforward. Go to Settings, click System, then Display, scroll down to Graphics, click Change Default Graphics, Settings, and toggle Hardware Accelerated GPU Scheduling to On. Restart your PC. That is all it takes. On systems where the hardware supports it properly, this is a genuine measurable performance improvement, not a theoretical one. It has been available since Windows 10 version 2004, but remains turned off by default, presumably because Microsoft wanted a conservative rollout across the enormous variety of GPU hardware in the wild. Here's another thing that is slowing your computer down right now and that almost nobody knows about. It is not a setting you need to turn on. It is a setting you need to turn off, and it has to do with something called transparency effects and animation. Windows 11 in particular loves visual effects. The Start menu has a frosted glass blur effect. The taskbar is semi-transparent. Menus fade in and out. Notifications slide across your screen. All of these effects require your GPU and CPU to do extra work with every single interaction you have with Windows. On a modern, powerful machine, this work is trivial. But on anything mid-range or older, these effects are quietly consuming processing resources that could instead be going toward whatever you're actually trying to do. Turning off transparency effects takes about 10 seconds. Open Settings. Go to Personalization, then Colors, and toggle transparency effects off. The difference might look subtle visually, but the responsiveness improvement on older hardware is immediately noticeable. Window W's menus and panels will snap open and close without the translucency overhead. For animations, go to Settings, then Accessibility, then Visual Effects, and turn off animation effects. Alternatively, right-click on this PC. Select Properties, go to Advanced System Settings, click Settings under the Performance section, and select Adjust for best performance. Then manually re-enable just the options you want to keep. This level of control lets you strip out everything that taxes your system without making Windows look completely bare. Now here is one that is genuinely surprising because it involves a registry tweak that almost no mainstream guide ever mentions, and the effect of it is immediate and unmistakable. There's a setting buried in your Windows registry called Menu Show Delay, and its default value is 400. That number represents 400 milliseconds, nearly half a second, of intentional delay that Windows inserts before showing drop-down menus. This was originally designed in older versions of Windows to prevent menus from accidentally popping open when users were just moving their mouse across the screen. In 2026, on modern precision touchpads and mice, this rationale is obsolete. But the 400 millisecond delay remains baked into every Windows installation by default. To change it, open the registry editor by pressing Windows plus R, typing regedit, and pressing Enter. Navigate through the folders to HKEI Current User, then Control Panel, then Desktop. Find the entry called Menu Show Delay in the list on the right side, double-click it, and change the value from 400 to 0. Close the registry editor and restart your PC. From that point forward, every single menu in Windows will appear instantly the moment you click. It is a small change in isolation, but it affects every interaction you have with every menu in the operating system, hundreds of times per day. The cumulative effect on how responsive Windows feels is surprisingly significant. Let's talk about storage, because this is one area where people understand there is a problem but completely misunderstand what the actual fix is. Most people know that a nearly full hard drive slows down a computer. What most people do not know is exactly how early that slowdown starts and why. For traditional hard disk drives, performance begins to degrade noticeably when they are around 80 to 85% full because the drive physically runs out of contiguous space to write data and starts fragmenting files across disconnected sectors. But solid-state drives have a different mechanism. They use something called over-provisioning space to manage write operations efficiently, and when an SSD gets too full, that management overhead increases and write speeds drop measurably. The threshold for SSDs is around the same 85% mark, but it catches people off guard because SSDs are supposed to be fast, and people assume they will stay fast regardless of how full they are. Windows 11 includes a feature called Storage Sense that automatically manages this for you. It can be configured to regularly delete temporary files, clear old Windows Update packages that accumulate silently in the background, empty the recycle bin on a schedule, and clean up files in your Downloads folder that have not been touched in a specified period. Go to Settings, then System, then Storage, and enable Storage Sense. Set the cleanup frequency to weekly. These automatic cleanups can recover gigabytes of space on almost any Windows installation without you needing to do anything manually. And keeping your drive in that healthier capacity range keeps read and write speeds where they should be. Beyond Storage Sense, there is one more storage-related fix that is specific to systems still running traditional spinning hard drives rather than SSDs. On HDDs, Windows should be running disk defragmentation regularly to reorganize fragmented file data back into contiguous blocks. Windows does schedule this automatically, but the schedule can get disrupted, especially after major updates or on machines that are frequently turned off at night before the scheduled maintenance can run. Open the defragment and optimize. Drives tool by searching for it in the Start menu. Check when each of your drives was last optimized, and if the date is more than a few weeks old for an HDD, run it manually. Do not defragment an SSD. That is counterproductive and reduces the lifespan of the drive. The tool in Windows is smart enough to distinguish between drive types and will instead run an optimization process called trim on SSDs, which helps with their internal garbage collection. Now here is something that Microsoft itself has started actively addressing as part of the Windows K2 project, and it is something that has caused widespread frustration for years. The number of programs that launch automatically when Windows starts has ballooned over time. Every application you install wants to put itself in the startup queue. Cloud storage clients, messaging apps, browser helpers, game launchers, update, services, manufacturer utilities, they all add themselves to startup, often without asking clearly. Every one of these adds to the time it takes for your computer to become fully usable after booting, and many of them continue consuming CPU and RAM in the background indefinitely, even after you have finished opening whatever it was you actually wanted to use. Open Task Manager by pressing Control plus Shift plus Escape, click on the Startup Apps, tab. You will see every program that launches when Windows starts, along with a column showing its startup impact, measured as low, medium, or high. Go through this list carefully and disable everything that you do not genuinely need available from the moment your PC starts. Right-click each unnecessary entry and select Disable. You are not uninstalling anything. You can still open these applications manually whenever you need them. You are simply stopping them from automatically consuming your system resources in the background at startup and throughout your session. On a machine that has been used for a year or more without this kind of cleanup, disabling startup bloat can cut boot times dramatically and free up hundreds of megabytes of RAM that were being silently consumed. There is also a RAM-related setting that connects directly to what Microsoft is now addressing with the low latency profile update. Windows has a feature called Superfetch, which was later renamed sysmain, that preloads applications it predicts you will use into RAM, so they appear to launch faster when you click them. The idea was clever. Pre-warm your most used apps in memory so they are ready before you even ask for them. In practice, on machines with limited RAM, 8 gigabytes or less, sysmain can cause significant background disk activity, especially on HDDs, as it constantly reads and writes to build its prediction model. This background activity is often what causes that familiar situation where you sit down at your computer, click something, and nothing responds for 30 seconds because the drive is thrashing with sysmain's background preloading. On machines with 16 gigabytes of RAM or more and an SSD, sysmain is largely harmless and the preloading benefit is real. But on machines with 8 gigabytes or less, particularly those still running HDDs, disabling sysmain can deliver a noticeable reduction in background disk activity and improve responsiveness during the first few minutes after startup. To manage it, search for services in the Start menu, open the Services application, scroll to sysmain, double-click it, set the startup type to disabled, and stop the service. Restart your PC and monitor whether responsiveness improves. If it does not help, or if it makes things worse, you can re-enable it the same way. This is not a one-size-fits-all fix. It depends specifically on your hardware configuration, but for low RAM, HDD-based machines, it is often one of the most impactful changes you can make. Let's also address the GPU driver situation, because outdated graphics drivers are one of the most common and most overlooked causes of sluggish Windows performance. People think of GPU drivers as something that only matters for gaming, but that is not true. Your GPU handles nearly every visual element of Windows. Every window you drag, every animation, every video thumbnail, every web page that renders. If your GPU driver is outdated, it is not just your games that suffer. The entire visual layer of Windows operates below its potential. NVIDIA and AMD both release driver updates regularly, often with significant performance and stability improvements for the operating system itself, not just game titles. Go to the NVIDIA GeForce Experience application or AMD's Adrenalin software, check for driver updates, and install them. Then do the same for your chipset drivers and NVMe controller drivers through your motherboard manufacturer's website or Windows Update, These updates are free, they take minutes, and the performance impact is frequently substantial. Here is a final piece that ties all of this together and explains why your Windows machine may have felt increasingly slow over the past year or two without any obvious reason. Windows 11 version 24H2, which rolled out broadly in late 2024 and became standard in 2025, introduced a new energy recommendation system under power settings. The idea was good: suggest ways to save power and reduce energy consumption. But an unintended consequence reported by many users is that some of these recommendations quietly switched power profiles to more conservative modes without clear notification. If you accepted any energy recommendations at some point, or if Windows applied them without you realizing it, the fix is straightforward. Go to Settings, then System, then Power, and look for the Energy Recommendations section. Review anything flagged there and make sure your power plan reflects what you actually want. If you enabled Ultimate Performance Mode earlier in this video, confirm it is still selected here, because energy recommendation prompts can sometimes override manual power plan selections. The bigger picture of everything in this video is this: Microsoft built Windows to be cautious by default. It hides its most powerful settings, because it knows its software runs on an enormous range of hardware, from cheap budget laptops to professional workstations, and conservative defaults protect the Windows users are running hardware that is far more capable than the defaults allow it to perform. The low latency profile rolling out this month is proof that Microsoft itself now recognizes this. The Windows K2 project that drives it is a public commitment to make Windows measurably, genuinely faster through 2027, but you do not have to wait for Microsoft to send you each improvement one by one. The features in this video: low latency profile, ultimate performance power plan, hardware accelerated GPU scheduling, the menu show delay registry fix, proper storage management, startup cleanup, driver updates. These are all real, documented, tested, and available to you right now. Your computer is almost certainly faster than you think it is. You have just never been given the instructions to prove it.